Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Lowdown on Low Code. This is a particularly good one we've been particularly excited about. Let's kick off with just a little bit of housekeeping. So, for those of you who are out there listening, we come to you on YouTube, we come to you on any one of your favorite podcast platforms. Please hit the like button, please hit the share button. Help us get the word out because there's a lot of interest in this topic, and we're small folks looking to grow our audience. So, thanks so much for that. I'm Rob Koplowitz. I'm one of your co-hosts today. I go back a long ways in low code, started my enterprise software career building Lotus Notes applications. I worked for Oracle, I worked for Microsoft, I worked for IBM, I spent a number of years with Forrester. And throughout my career, I'd say I'd probably failed as much as I've succeeded, and probably my biggest failure was at retirement. So I find myself back in this game doing research with my old friend and colleague, John Rymer. How are you, John?
Very well. Psyched to be here, Rob. So I'm John Rymer, former Forrester analyst, worked at Forrester for about 17 years, worked as an analyst for about 25 years. And I want to relay a little story that includes our guest today, Paulo Rosado, CEO of Outsystems. I was in the Forrester office in San Francisco. It was we're winding down for the day. It was kind of later in the afternoon. And I had a briefing with this company that I had never heard of. And named Outsystems. And in comes Paulo Rosado. And Paulo, I think you must have been at the tail end of a very long trip around the world working with customers, and because boy, you looked exhausted. And
Yeah.
and so we sat down, you remember this, and we sat down, and Paulos and I was like, well, I never heard of you. What is this? What is this product? And we sat down, and Paulo took me through a full, robust demo. And I ended up writing a report because I was impressed by what I saw as a way to speed up application development considerably. And 2 years later, Paulo, after that report, Clay Richardson and I coined the term low code. And we've all kind of never looked back. So I thank you for that initial briefing, even though you were exhausted. You probably would have preferred a glass of wine to suffering my dumb questions. But
That was my permanent state at the time. So
anyway, Paulo, it's so great to have you as really one of the founders of this industry. And I'm sure I don't know your whole backstory, although you and I have been friends for a while. But I wonder if you could just help the audience know, how'd you get into this crazy game, and where did it all start for you?
Well, it started in the end of the 90s, actually. My previous life, I had been building these massively large systems. This was back in 98, 97. And I didn't deliver a single project on time and on budget. And so I kept on trying and trying. I failed about 10 projects, and then I decided to sell the company. I stayed working for another company for like 18 months, but kept on going back. What the hell? Why did we could not deliver such a, maybe we were we were idiots. Maybe there was something that was evading us. Then actually what myself and some colleagues realize is that we're trying to build projects the way you build bridges, which is you specify the requirements up front, and then you expect that the requirements don't change towards the next 18 months, 2 years for a mid-sized large project. And in fact, that's an absolutely incorrect assumption. And so what we did was we thought about, if changing something is so costly, why don't we assume that the requirements up front are fundamentally wrong, that they're going to change, and we just concentrate on changing something, either a platform or a process, that would allow us to decrease the cost of change by at least one order of magnitude. That's what we did. And the Outsystems platform was actually the inception of that fundamental first principle, which is decreasing the cost of change. We never expected that we ended up by fixing one of the fundamental problems in building software. And then the platform ended up by being a result of us reverse engineering the fundamental 4 to 6 issues that increase the cost of change. One of them was the use of code. And so that's how basically the company started.
Excellent. Thank you. Rob?
So, Paul, I want to sort of start by saying, if you're an idiot, you said maybe we're idiots, you got a lot of company, because we've heard this story before. It was a huge problem that you guys and others have set out to solve, and the commonality of response is kind of striking. Paulo, we talk to a lot of different vendors that call themselves low-code vendors, right? We'll go all the way from sort of simple situational no-code applications up through people who, have come from, maybe deep BPM type backgrounds. And these things are not all the same, right? There are certain applications that are really well designed to handle certain situations. And we kind of like to boil this down to, I'm an account exec and I work for Outsystems, and I've just walked into a new prospect. What am I hearing that says the characteristics of the process, of this prospect, what you are trying to accomplish, is really what Outsystems is designed to do?
That's a very good question, by the way. Actually, when I personally enter and start having a first conversation with either a CIO or someone at the C-suite or even a VP of AppDev, usually what we try to, it's a good sign when there is a sense of urgency. I mean, we're talking about a platform that takes a project of about 3 years and compresses it to 7 months. And we're talking about the previous version, pre-Gen AI, right? So that attribute of speed needs to be something that's highly valuable, because the thing is mission critical. The other thing that I really like is when the projects are already in the medium large to extra large, because those type of projects usually it's projects that are sitting on the shelf because a big SI went there, did an analysis, and figured out we need 2 years plus, sometimes 4 years, 100 developers to 400 developers to basically just build this project. And we all know that a project that takes more than 2 years is impossible to deliver because the requirements change too much and it needs to be re-architected again. It's what we call impossible projects. We like those because we take a project of 4 years, reduce it to between 7 months to 14. And because we're very good at handling surprises, given the focus on change, we ended up by delivering the project on time and on budget, even when there is a lot of turmoil in the requirements of the projects. And so we know that particular use case, we have several others, about 3 or 4 others. That particular use case, we have no competition whatsoever, and we love doing that. And that's fortunately, I think a lot of companies have reached a point where they have so many legacy systems that are in need of modernization and pure rewrite to cloud to get new architectures, because they have like these huge backlogs hanging on with not being flushed, that it's a huge opportunity now for this type of approach. So that's where we start.
Thank you, Paul. John?
Interesting. So sounds like, and I know I saw this even 3 years ago when I was at Forrester. Outsystems really tackling some very large, complex projects. I'm thinking of the big worldwide logistics system that you guys were just working with Maersk on when I came out. These, many of these applications, these large enterprise applications, the conventional thinking was you have to buy them. You're going to go to SAP, or you're going to go to Oracle, you're going to go to, Epic or whatever it is, one of the big, enterprise apps players that specialize in that area, and you're going to buy it because there's no way in hell you're ever going to be successful building it. But I wonder now if you're seeing a rethinking of that build versus buy logic for these large applications. What are you seeing out there?
No, we actually, it's interesting because a lot of our customers, by the way, things are changing as we speak, right? And so that equation is getting more strenuous, the buy versus build, because of Gen AI. But if I go back like 1 year, we got exactly that question from customers. I mean, we've done, for instance, claims processing systems. That's a good example of something that is kind of in the gray zone, whether you should buy a package or you should build it. What we find is that what we tell our customers is, listen, if you believe claims processing, you'll never want to change the process. If it's a commodity, it's not part of your competitive advantage, maybe you should buy it. But be aware that when you design the project, count how many change requests are within the RFP that you've created. If it's more than 4%, it's already in the danger zone. And if it reaches more than 10, the project might not finish in time. And so what we tell our customers is, if you want to buy something that you can deploy out of the box, maybe with some extensions with other tools. But if you have to do large customizations, you should build it. And sometimes, so everything that has to do like with workflows around the portals and stuff like that, that's a no-brainer, because you should never deploy that as a package, because those things are hit with change so frequently that you have to have a platform that's dealt for very rapid internal change. However, what we've seen, we just recently finished, not us, but our partners, finished a huge policy management system for life for a customer. So we're seeing now, there is another customer, which is an hospital, who's replacing CERN, a big HMS system, with a completely bespoke system built in Outsystems. So we even get surprised with that. We go back, why did you guys do that? Because we're tired of having our nurse ward management system changes as we change the procedures of the hospital. And it takes forever to deploy that in the digital system. So we started realizing what are the things we need to change, what are the things, and almost everything we need to change. And so, of course, this is a customer that has already built 2 or 3 systems, so they know this thing is mission critical, they can change it and whatever. But it's funny how they were able to reverse engineer a lot of the stuff with the processes they wanted, including like Manchester protocols and things that I don't even know because I'm not a healthcare expert. And they built that thing in less than 1 year. It takes about 2 to 3 years to customize a package. So at these very large ends, you start getting, the only issue is when you have a commodity, you don't want to reinvent the wheel, there's processes inside the software, then there is a reason to buy it. Otherwise, if you're going to already impose the way you work into the software, you might as well start with something like Outsystems.
Paulo, you've been at this a long time. I have trouble imagining that the number of processes that are not going to change is going up. I think it's the other way around. Even processes that in the past were fairly static, are you seeing now lots and lots of change even with them, with those processes that would tilt you towards build?
I can tell. You're absolutely right. Listen, for instance, something that was supposed to be a commodity, which was anything related to HR, like talent management or performance evaluations or whatever. Like, for instance, the performance evaluation workflows that used to be a yearly performance evaluation at the end of the year. Now, I talk with a lot of CIOs and a lot of VPs and even CEOs, and they say talent is at the top. We need to do real-time evaluation constantly. We need to almost have Gen AI kind of give us an idea whether there is a problem We need to query the 360. And so they're talking about innovation in talent, performance, and evaluation. So we go back to Workday, for instance, which is the system we use, and we don't see that there. And so we've built that portion by extending Workday. So things that we thought were going to be commodity get flipped whenever the differentiators of the company shift towards another direction. And talent, for instance, has become one. One thing that we haven't seen change is probably general ledger. It's the only thing I've never...
Yeah.
But even parts of like claims processing, for instance, calculating premiums, which is usually something you'd expect from a financial system. We've had several customers where the calculation of premiums is so complex and so bespoke that they moved it into Outsystems. And so it's always that dichotomy between whether it's a real commodity that's not going to change in the next 400 years, or it's something that's going to change in the next 3 months. And most of the process, you're right, they change in the next 3 months.
Right. Great. Rob?
So, Paulo, I'm apologize. I want to slide in an additional question here as a follow-up to that, because you've hit on a couple of themes here that I think are really important for our audience to understand. You talked about, massive upfront process, massive upfront requirements gathering, but the process is changing as you're gathering requirements. You mentioned I'm no healthcare expert, right? Well, the experts in how the business are run are embedded in the business. You mentioned where we find our differentiations, right? I'm Workday is great, but I need to identify my business differentiators and build it on top as an extension. This is a fundamentally different way of developing in the sense that it involves the business users and business expertise in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
They're much more involved in the process. They're much more involved in identifying opportunities and iterating within the process in a continuous improvement type model. Is that part of it? Is that a big part of where Outsystems differentiates certainly from traditional coding?
I think that's the case. Probably the thing that we see in the change of in things that change with people that embark on these processes for the first time is a shift in the way they evaluate risk. So most of the professionals we deal with that haven't experienced this type of process, they come with an extreme conservative approach. And so especially when they're tackling the larger the project, the more buffer for surprises they put at the end of the project. And so things that could be done maybe in 2 years end up by having from the start a budget of 3 years and a half. And so what we tell them usually is, and this is a very important, we tell them, please trust us that this thing is extremely predictable. Not only are we going to deliver 4 times faster, but we're going to hit the date. I don't remember in the past 10 years, and that's the past 10 years, and that's true. I don't remember a single project that was delayed more than 2 to 4 weeks. Mm. We're talking about 7 months projects that got compressed from 2.5 to 3 years. Okay. And so why is that we're able to do this? It's because the capacity to recover is so fast. We have studied over many years everything that can go wrong, like integrations that are not documented, data that was expected to be available, it's completely dirty, the data. Suddenly you lose half of the developer team because they go and start a startup. There's so many surprises that occur during a big project that we've managed to, over the years, kind of compensate for one. Integrations is a big one. Losing the sponsor is another one. And we recover from all of these idiosyncrasies and surprises, so we're able to always meet the target. And the first time, it takes time until the practitioners actually realize, my God, I can say yes. Yes, we're going to deliver in 7 months. And they say, but you haven't done a full analysis. I don't need to, because I can do it as I show you more. I show you the intermediate versions of the application. You as a customer, you can give me feedback. We can change it together. The system will become very tuned to what you need, not what you perceived that you needed before we started. And in the end, because this thing recovers from surprises so fast, we're going to hit the deadline together. And when you think about that, the relationship between business and IT changes dramatically. It becomes more of the business asking for something, and instead of always getting a no from the IT, what they do is they get a yes, but can I deliver in 4 weeks? And so it's always reasonable type of conversations. And the businesses get highly involved and committed to the project, which actually, one of the side effects of this is that the change management deploying a large project, a new one, a new system, a new software system, is dramatically decreased because the business is involved from day one. Mm-hmm. They see the early versions, they become champions, they become walking manuals. Whenever they are there, they kind of give you feedback. This UI is very difficult to use. Get this feedback, and we change that UI in like 2 or 3 hours. It gets flushed, and so the customers the users don't even have time to become frustrated because things change and adapt so fast. So usually we have very, very successful projects that before were considered impossible.
Thank you, Paulo.
Thank you.
So I want to just take a moment for a quick commercial break. So for listeners, John and I come to you through analysis.tech. Our company is analysis.tech. If you'd like to engage with John, with myself, at a deeper level, with Dave Marcus, with Ryan Duguid, Francis Cardin, or Andy Bartels, our chief economist, at a deeper level, you can find us and all of our podcasts and our research at analysis.tech. Paulo, when John and I were working together quite a number of years ago, and working with you as well, we had this contention, which we think is becoming the case. So if I could sort of look at the poster children for who I was covering, I was kind of on the BPM, later the DPA side of the world, and maybe Pega and Appian were kind of my IBM, or kind of my poster children. On John's side of the world, maybe Outsystems, Mendix, and some others. And our contention is that these worlds were going to merge, and that applications that are process driven would no longer be different than applications that are necessarily transactional. People are looking for things that are able to handle a number of different workloads. At the same time, orchestration has been coming to the forefront as a significant issue. Is this something Outsystems is seeing? You mentioned claims management, classic process application. Mm-hmm. Are you getting pulled further and further into this process and orchestration world?
It's not so much further, but it has always been there. And so it's part of the... in terms of the way we design the language or the model that supports creating these applications, the workflow abstraction is an important one. It's an important one, complemented with the repository or the database, complemented with the UI that includes mobile and web, complemented with integrations. And now complemented, for instance, there's a new type of abstraction, which is the agent, the AI agent. And so we always kind of try to create the highest level of abstraction so that we can basically model something that's in the mind of the designer, the developer. So we've always had kind of workflows. We introduced workflows when we started getting a lot of case management projects. But what we realized towards the end, because we measure a lot of this, is that if you take all the objects and the change management that's required on a system that includes all of these components, one of the pieces that changes the least is the workflow, which was surprising for us. But it's about, on average, 7% of a system. It's a very small percentage. And so the effort goes into other areas. Typically UI, that takes about more than 50%. So the interfaces change dramatically. The integration flow of the data and the repositories change about 15%. Also, they get hit 15%. And so we ended up by improving the product by flocking to the high change portions. and optimizing the eye change portions of the applications. And so they are important, but they are relatively stable, which is a funny thing. And that's why you sometimes see other BPM-centric platforms that end up by having to go to code to handle a lot of nitty-picky changes on the UI, on the repository, on the rules, on the integrations. A lot of those things tend to have to be done outside of the core model or the core visual development. And that's a problem. That's a problem for legacy. That's a problem for change. That's a problem for keeping an application evergreen. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Very much. Thank you, Paulo. You mentioned AI, and we've begun to see what you guys are working on at Outsystems. AI looks like it's going to be a very, very powerful addition to low-code platforms. It looks like it may disrupt some existing markets as well. For the audience, help them understand what you're doing now to apply AI. Gen AI is of great interest, as you know. And I'm curious, as someone who was one of the founding fathers of this field, looking ahead, Paulo, 10 years, where do you think this new set of AI capabilities is going to take us?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with the first one, John. Thank you very much for the question. So we have been tackling this AI on two pillars, two parallel fronts. One is we built very quickly. We built an editor to be able to create agents because we wanted to experiment in the market. No one knew, and still today, there's a lot of confusion on how these things are deployed, what is the life cycle, and we wanted to experiment with that. And so we had about 40 customers using this tool. We have been changing it almost every week, and we use it internal also. One thing, for instance, that we've realized is that while an agent is a component, for instance, you can put an agent with a portal, or you can put an agent in the middle of a workflow. The fact of the matter is that the life cycle of these things is different from deterministic software. And so we've been going on and on and on. And as we move on, we realize that the cycles of continuous delivery and change are broken in different ways that deterministic software are. So there's a lot of research we've been doing that, but it's really experimentation. And so we've been deployed so far. I think we have deployed probably 150 agents, use cases in real life situations among ourselves and our customers. And we've changed this tool like 500 times. And so we've been experimenting with it, and it's becoming really cool. The second area, which is more, how shall I say it, a much bigger investment, is that because we have this language, this full stack language, we have a huge opportunity to actually generate. We're looking at generating a very large portion of a massively large application, but at the same time, make it possible to be tuned and adjusted later. And so we're using AI generators, AI editors, Copilot type of approaches, with one fundamental advantage is that our code generation is broken in two. And so we've been using AI to generate into this language, and then we have a deterministic code generator, almost like a compiler, that generates the rest into real code that runs in our hosting. And the reason why we did this in two phases is because with the portion that's non-deterministic, which is the neural network, and the other portion that's deterministic, which is a normal algorithm, we can, for instance, make a patch, a security patch, on the code that's generated on the bottom layer, and make sure that the AI will never regenerate a bug that removes the security patch. And I have tons of examples where this two-layer approach is absolutely fundamental to be able to use Gen AI without creating a huge problem in terms of compliance, in terms of security, in terms of scalability, and in terms of a bunch of stuff that are required by very large organizations. So fundamentally, the type of applications, John and Rob, are changing. They're changing dramatically. And so you talk about workflows. We see more and more the workflows disappearing, being replaced by an agent that redirects the flow. Okay. The AI, the UIs are changing, the forms are disappearing. Why would you need to type a form if you can talk or dump a bunch of text and the agent kind of structures the data out of the unstructured text into the form? And so the UI practices are changing dramatically. And because we tackle all of these issues, we have teams that are kind of trying to understand where this thing is going in these multiple areas. And, you know, I've been around, I've been in this, doing this for the past 23 years. And every time I think, okay, this is stable now, probably can retire, whatever, here comes another interesting moment, another exciting thing, and another future where we think where this thing is going. And it's, oh my God, it's really exciting. In terms of the future, it's what we talked in the beginning. I believe there's going to be a dramatic shift in the buy to build equation. I truly do. There will be more software overall. There is a huge hidden pipeline of software, backlog of software that's going to be flushed. And that we also see no reason why companies will stop having so much legacy for so many years. Systems can be replaced much, much quicker as we move towards the future. And so there is no reason why you should have inactive systems or frozen systems that no one touches or whatever, given the fact that with these new tools, you can fundamentally rewrite a new system extremely, extremely fast.
Right.
So I think it's amazing. This is an industry that's completely disrupted now.
Is there anything that scares you about AI?
No, not the AI that exists today. Actually, we've kind of we like this model where everyone, all the investors, when you talk with them, they say there's no money in foundation models, at least not for the little ones. It's going to be like 3 or 4 or 6, I don't know, companies building foundational models. And so everything that we do, all of these guys like Google and whatever, they're building out foundation models where we can basically augment them either with context windows or with context text and grounding and all of those techniques, which basically removes a huge amount of learning curve for people who want to build these agents in a very, very effective way. And we have experimented with so much that we've realized what is the anatomy of the patterns to do this and also the life cycles of these systems. And so we're excited because we usually like to speed this up. And we also like to tackle the life cycle of change. It's so, you know, John, that's always been our saying, right? And that was we were a little bit fuzzy like 6 to 9 months ago, but we've kind of nailed it now. And it's amazing. It allows us to do and give our customers capacities to do some stuff that's really, really impressive. But the technology is relatively simple. The patterns are simple. It's just that the impact is huge.
Got it.
So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rob, back over to you.
Paulo, thank you so much. This has been so informative. I the quote about sort of the shift in the build versus buy and the hidden pipeline was so powerful to me. But along with so much other great content you provided today, thank you, John, for co-hosting. Thank you, Paulo, for coming in and sharing your insights. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you here today.
No, likewise, guys. And it's really nice to see you every 2 years, John. Next
We're gonna
time
have
I
to
hope you're
fix
good
that.
for a sushi for some sushi,
Yeah.
as we always did
Yeah.
in the past.
By the way, if you like this episode, on whatever platform you're viewing it on, hit the like button, please, and tell your friends and neighbors. We're excited about the interviews that we're doing on the lowdown and low code. We think there's a lot of great insights to share, and so please, if you agree with us, give us a little love. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.